Director Thomas. Director Ratterman. Director Robertson.
Here.
President Davidson. Stated in the last meeting that he wasn't going to be. It was a previous.
Probably address it. That's item. Public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No action to be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments limited to 3 minutes per person. Any public comment today? Anybody online that wants to make public comment? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial. The items to be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that an item be removed for later consideration. 3A, report of monthly investments and transactions of May 2025. 3B, adoption of fiscal year 25-26 district pay schedules for CalPERS. 3C, resolution of support for nomination of Ernesto A. Avalon for Aqua president. Do I have a motion for accepted? Second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to 4A, new business, discussion, action to purchase equipment from Cla-Val and Mueller Systems for advanced metering infrastructure project. Kevin. Turn your mic on, Mike.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Today I'm here to talk about our AMI project that we finished up, and it was a grant loan for the project. And the project spent under the $5 million, and the total amount of the USDA funding was $6 million, between $5 and $6 million as grant funds. So we were able to secure an extension with the USDA to allow us to use the remaining grant funds and also spend the remaining loan funds. So we were kind of looking at the best ways to use these funds, and they have to kind of have a nexus with the AMI project that we completed. So we wanted to use the remaining loan funds to purchase spare equipment. It's about $160,000. That's spare collectors, spare repeaters. We've had a couple of them go out now. The original project bought a couple of spares, but we need some more to kind of maintain our system and avoid outages while we send the collectors back in for repairs. So that's one component. And the second component is Cla-Val makes as you know, up in Ebbets Pass, we have over 100 pressure zones in the system. It's pretty kind of unbelievable. Most water districts only have a few pressure zones, but with the terrain we have up there, we have all these PRVs serving the community. So we were looking at ways that we can use these PRVs to provide us information about our system and replace the aging PRVs in the system. So and the second component is from Mueller Systems. These are pressure and leak detection fire hydrants. And we replaced our existing fire hydrants with new fire hydrants and put the Mueller technologies in the bonnet of the hydrant. It would provide us information on the system, so we could detect leaks quicker and pressure spikes in the system. And we're looking mainly in the Jangland service area to install those. So these clay valves, I invited our rep from Cla-Val, Colin, who works with us on a regular basis, kind of maintaining the existing clay valves. We have the pressure reducing valves that we have in the system. So with these new pressure reducing valves, we'll be able to find leaks quicker. We can compare the data from the AMI system. So if there's a certain amount of flow being used in a pressure zone, we can correlate that to the flows that we see through the PRVs. And we have better control of the valve and stuff. But I'll kind of let Colin go into more details on how these new PRVs work. It's a fairly new technology, but a number of the water agencies in Northern California have them installed. Okay.
How you guys doing? Paul and Bryant, Cla-Val Company, area sales manager, Northern California. So Kevin asked me to come in and just kind of explain what these items do. I don't want to be leaguer with a huge PowerPoint. I'll try to go as quick as I can. Kevin kind of hit the high points. But obviously you guys know what you produce, what you treat, and you guys now know what you build through your AMI system. So it's that in-between phase of where does the water go? Why is there a delta between what we produce, what we treat, what we send out to the system, and what we accurately bill for? The picture in the middle is the Ebbets Pass zone. I didn't do my due diligence, so I must apologize. 295 valves have been logged into our Link to Valves program between Jenny Lind, Ebbets, and Copper. Kelly, how many valves were there up in the Ebbets area? Lots. Okay. Based on those pinpoints there, those are all valves that have been logged into our system. So we'll talk a little bit about what you guys get from Link to Valve, but there are a lot of pressure zones. I think Kevin alluded to 100 pressure zones. So this is the telemetry that's added to whether it be existing valves, if you guys decide, or to new valves. It can be, my valve was just added, those two systems. So excuse me. Pressure in, the pressure out, it creates a differential pressure, and with the valve position, it can calculate flow through that valve. So same thing that you would get per se through a bag meter. You just don't have to do any additional construction in the vault. You just add these to what I would say your existing assets are out in the field. So with this is you can get flow, you can get pressure, you can see where there are dead zones, valves that don't open. If you have multiple valves that feed one zone, you want to make sure these valves are all carrying their weight. So the percentage open of these valves would be about the same. And now you can adjust that versus calling on the radio, calling on the cell phone, seeing how far the valve is open at any given point. Plus C pressures, things that you don't necessarily get through a mag meter. So, and then what does all the data say, right? So if there's flow data, it can show you where the flow is coming from, which area, which line, into what zone. You can also keep track of that flow to know what flows through a certain zone. You know what you fill in that zone, and you know what flows into that zone. Again, coming up with that delta. And then the pressure data, obviously, Kevin alluded to 100 pressure zones. You guys have very high pressures in some of your systems, taking water from 6,000 feet all the way down to 300 feet. So you guys have a lot of pressure zones that you have to keep track of. We can also set this up to send error messages or fault codes. If a pressure gets too high, maybe a pressure gets too low, maybe a flow gets too high, those things can all be set up to be sent back to you guys. The data what you see in this slide is what's there. It's all voltage. So it doesn't require any additional electrical components. It is voltage powered. The one that you're looking at there has what I would call 3C batteries on the inside of the unit that provide you 2 to 3 years of service life, depending on how many backhauls of data that you get. Typically, people do once a day. If you want more, then of course that'll degrade the battery quicker. We as a company have moved to an external battery, which will do 5 to 7 years of battery life, again, depending on how many backhauls of data that you do have. But that's all put into a vault. Here's one that we retrofitted. I believe this was in Walla Walla, Washington. So again, existing infrastructure, that being the pressure reducing valve that you see pictured there. And we put the pressure sensors, the X141s on inlet and outlet, the position transmitter on the cover of the valve. And then we attached the transformer, the wiring conduit, the head unit, and the external battery all on the wall of the vault. This, we would want to look into some way of either taking it out of, if the vault floods, we would want to make sure that we, look into that and make sure we move it into some sort of waterproof box or something up and out of the way. But here's are all the components, right? Upstream, downstream, valve position, and that's all sent back to our Link to Valves program at this point. So, what does the Link to Valves program do? Again, you guys have 295 valves logged, or the district has 295 valves logged in the system already. This is another shot of, I believe that is the whole system overall. And is it Wilseyville? I think that's the one there at the 12 o'clock position. So 295 valves are already logged. Right now, there's no interaction from the valves to this program because they have no way of getting that data back. But now what you can do is take this and make it live. So if I may go here, and I will share this screen as well, if permitted, is that moving? There we go. All right, it's my screen. If I can share it, I do apologize. I'm gonna stop sharing that one, and I'll share another screen. Share my environment. So this is the data site. This obviously isn't your area. These are just two data sites that we have. So with this is you guys will have access, the district will have access to this on the data view aspect of it. So what we do is in this particular case, we created a special window for you guys to view. Again, this is just two beta testers, but all of this information is sent back to Link to Valves, the program that we use and you guys use as well. And you get all of this data sent back to you. You can set this up depending on what view you want. You just want to look at Ebbets Pass. I want to look at inlet pressures. I want to look at outlet pressures. I want to look at valve positions, whatever that may be. You just highlight or you check or uncheck the specific box. So we're going to assume that this is two separate vaults. There's two separate valves feeding one vault or feeding one service zone. If you just want to look at, hey, how far open are both of my valves going into this location? You can just uncheck anything that you don't want. And now you specifically see just the valve position. So very key for these valves. I don't know. These valves like to be at least 20% open. So you want to make sure that each of the valves that are feeding a zone are carrying their fair weight. How do you know that information now? You don't. You just kind of visually look at it. This way you can go through and see, hey, these two vaults are open. And if you hover over it, you can see down here, it'll tell me that, hey, that bypass valve is 93% open. The main valve in this case is 17% open. You may want to make some adjustments to your pressure so that both of those valves, the valve that's 93% open will come down and the other valve will go up to make sure they're both carrying their fair share. If you wanted to look at outlet pressures on both of these valves, again, any of that data that you wanted to click and check, you can do that here. Or what you can do is on a semi-regular basis, download the chart as a CSV file. And this is probably going to throw us off again. Rebecca, I'm very sorry to another window. But what we can do is I will stop sharing this window. Share my Excel spreadsheet. So here's an Excel spreadsheet. Here's a blank workbook. I'm going to open that up, take my data view, and then I will CSV file. There we go. So text from a CSV file that we downloaded from our devices. It was just a week's worth of data. Works. Go down to downloads. There's the last one that we downloaded. We import all of that. And all that data. So now, taken from the information sent to you guys, typically these are logged every 15 minutes. Data dump done typically midnight, could be 5 a.m. if you want to catch that morning irrigation usage in the morning, whatever that is. And now this chart can be sent back to you. There is the ability to backhaul this automatically to your SCADA program with an API or an application program interface if you choose to do that, where all of that information can be automatically sent to the SCADA, where it's all there to be logged and then put into your system how to choose this. So no longer guessing what the pressures are in, out, valve positions, balancing the system. All that information will be sent back to you guys without the need of putting in additional control as far as electricity.
Great. What have any questions?
What's the fairly new setup? What's the reliability to, looks like there's just similar metals there, but I can't tell from here. Is there any?
No issue with that. So as far as the product itself is, again, throughout the district or throughout the entire district, you have 295 of these of varying ages, right? I think maybe the gentleman behind me could probably speak better on the longevity of them. They do last a very long time. As far as the telemetry, it's been out for like 3 to 5 years at this point. Typically with the rollout of product is that it's very slow. You get one, you get two. These were used, I want to say 600 of them were used in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, for the annual pilgrimage. Millions of people go there on an annual basis. They had a sprinkler system tied up to where as they go through line, it's very hot. Keep them with water. Well, one time that broke down on them a couple of years ago. So we developed this with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to have a way that they can monitor each of their valves and make sure that they're all operating. So domestically, or excuse me, internationally, there is anywhere from 600 to 1,000 of them. Locally, we have, again, only 8 to 12. The warranty of the product is a 1-year warranty. That's standard for electronic components. But, with the battery life of 3 to 5 years, depending on it, the dissimilar metals, it is all using with tight tape. So again, I think the biggest concern in my mind would be the water intrusion in the head unit. That would be the one thing that we would want to consider. And if we know it's in a vault that floods, I would say we move that up either out of the high water mark or in a waterproof box, something like that. But yeah, it's working flawlessly in Saudi Arabia. That's really the only, that's the one thing I can't tell. Yeah, I'm sorry.
These clay valves are pretty much industry standard. So you're going to see these throughout water systems all over the world, really extensively in California.
Without a cell phone.
Yeah. And then this is kind of if you consider the AMI project, and the fact that this grant money was made there, but the project, this is kind of to build upon what AMI does, which is allows us to understand production versus consumption. And now we can refine where all the consumption is and then better understand how the water is used, not just throughout the service areas, but within the unique components of the service of the neighborhoods. So this is kind of building.
So we'll be able to do the math on that will compare the AMI data. And then these will also give us something to compare. And if the numbers are different, then we will know that there's a problem in that zone.
Exactly right. Yep. And so, like Colin said, he shows this CSV file. We can actually incorporate that into the mobile master reporter system.
What's the term? Is it unrealized water?
Non-revenue water, or I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
The unaccounted for water. Yeah. So this
will help us with that, with our unaccounted.
Yeah, exponentially, and also with energy. So like you're talking about refined, we can better understand the kind of the inlet and outlet of a clay valve based on flow, based on demand, and based on the opening of the valve itself. And we can tighten that, which saves us.
I was going to say that graph that I showed was using 2 valves in the wall, but the idea would be to use that to refine, much like Dave said, refining down to the part we have a leak with refining it'll serve where how much flows through X valve, Y valve, B valve, and then you can see a lot of building up here, but we don't recognize that billing in that neighborhood. So that's the way to beat it again.
Okay, so if I'm understanding what you're saying, that the largely blue big portion of that assembly there, we already own that, it's in the ground.
You own 295 plus.
So if we go with this, you would be adding the shiny components.
So, yeah,
Pressure training.
And by following along, if somebody is looking at a screen and they see an anomaly, if they can, from the screen or from the computer, they can adjust this valve.
Get down free pressure. That change.
If we install say, a new development that required these, we could wire them to be operated remotely. Maybe without SCADA capability.
I'm sorry, let me just.
Yeah, if we were to do a new install, something, and if we plan for the power associated with that, could we set up a SCADA system to operate?
There is a pilot, so this is just a standard. This is more designed for if there is no power. The expense of pulling power.
Oh, sure.
Sure. This is a non-power situation. If you have power, the desire to put power against the period of.
AWA is, for example, they can remotely operate a valve like that, much bigger, to send more water.
Okay, we have 295 of those valves in the ground in that system. Is it just in Ebbets Pass that we're considering this? I know we have.
So, yeah, the proposal now is to put 20 brand new 6-inch and 20 brand new 2-inch PRV people. Yeah, and then that with the controls that go along with them. So that'd be like replacing some of the older ones we have. So we try to utilize this grant fund not only for the controls, but also to maybe replace PRVs that are at their life.
We're just buying enough based on how much money was left over from that.
Yes. Yeah, so we could go another way and retrofit a bunch of the existing valves, but the idea is right now is to pick about 20 locations. Most of them have like a main valve like this and then a bypass valve that's smaller. So like there's fire flow valve and a regular valve. So you'd have 2 of these in a lot of the PRVs, and some of the PRVs that don't have a bypass would just have a single unit. So that was the idea, is to try to strategically pick 20 zones that in Ebbets Pass that we could start as kind of pilot project.
Have we done that already? Chosen the 20 that,
Yeah. Absolutely. With there's some flexibility there, but really the focus is to try to kind of split the difference between making our infrastructure linear, but also making this intelligent, rather than, put a chandelier in an outhouse.
Thought that was in the budget.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So, this was not in the original grant request. We've got grant money left over, but it fits within the restrictions of what you can do.
Yeah, this fits within we reviewed the proposal with the USDA, and it fits within the scope of the grant. So this purchasing these would be eligible for use of grant funds. I noticed in the agenda item that there's additional level of review at the national level with USDA. So that they're looking for fraudulent use, like the Doge thing that's going on. So once it's purchased, there's another level of review that has to happen at the national level. I don't think that this is waste and abuse, so I don't think we have any issues, but I just want to note that because the USDA brought that to our attention.
I'm just to make it clear, there is no leftover money. We're gonna borrow more money.
No, this is all grant money.
This is grant? 'Cause
Yeah, the
it's
$1
not-
million is grant money, so if we don't use it, we lose it. So
Okay, it's not the 5 million.
we have,
Loan.
we have roughly $160,000 left of the loan that we have to spend because we already took the loan out on that money.
Okay, so this is the actual grant.
This
section.
would all be the
Not the loan.
grant. Buying the spare equipment for the AMI would be the loan.
All right. All right, anything else from the board?
The only thing that makes me just a little nervous about this is there's a lot of moving parts in Washington right now. So what would be your plan B if we buy these things and install them and the money doesn't come through? What then?
Well,
That's been allocated.
yeah, it'd be complicated. I mean, we either have to take the money out of another future project, or there could be some payment terms we could work out with Cla-Val and we could pay over time. Or there could
This
be,
is secured. These are secured funds.
yeah, they're in our name and they're in a pot in Washington, but there's the USDA's lost 50% of their staff and they're a little bit on edge. So they gave us, the lady that we deal with is, she can be a little nervous about some stuff. So, I mean, it's just, there was a cautionary tale that this has to go through national and that doesn't happen until after.
But we
we
wouldn't-
purchase equipment.
We wouldn't sign a contract until it was secured.
Well, unfortunately, there's really, they can't guarantee that, she said she can't guarantee that the funds wouldn't be pulled after we purchase it. So, I mean, that, she said a slim chance, but it's unlikely because they're targeting fraud and abuse on these grants. And this doesn't qualify for fraud and abuse, so I don't think I think it's very, very unlikely, so does she, but there's, with the uneasiness in Washington, there's a very small risk that, it's not. I don't know how to.
If it didn't by chance pass muster, we'd be on the hook for 40,000
For $1 million, yeah.
$1 million.
So with this program, with the grant loan component was approved for CCWD, this kind of secondary review from the feds about whether the grant money was spent efficiently didn't exist. And so recently, based on all the kind of changes that have happened in Washington, this extra checkbox is, exists, which says, the grant money will, here you go, you have it, you're entitled to it. But we're going to review your requested spend and determine whether or not it was waste, fraud, or abuse. And if we feel that it was wasteful or belligerent, we're going to kick the money back. And what our folks are telling our engineering team is we don't anticipate that to happen. But it is a new checkbox that didn't exist before. So eyes wide open for the grants. And to your point.
But the catch 22 here is that if we don't check our box and spend the money and get the parts on hand, then the million goes away on its own.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we feel confident that being able to we can tell the story. Go from an no AMI project, 40% water loss, we're drilling down on water loss. And it was just based on our system. We didn't understand what it was unaccounted for. Refine that. This project further refines it. So it's not like, we want to buy a bunch of bucket trucks with grant funds from just the meter project. We want to buy water system monitoring equipment, which better tells us where the water flows, which we feel confident that the feds are going to say, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You have any written communication with them, not where they say, yeah, this will pass, but yes, this is extra box to check, but this, from what you're telling us, this looks like it fits within the parameters, the scope of the grant.
Yeah, we submitted the project proposal to our, to the state engineer. He's since retired in the program, but yeah, they've told us that it qualifies for it. And we got an extension to November, the end of November to purchase it. So.
Well, I'm going to gamble that this district is not involved with the fraud and abuse. And we've done we've known about this project for a long time. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to authorize general manager to execute one or more purchase orders for pressure monitoring, flow control, and AMI compatible equipment in a total amount not to exceed $1,160,000 grant loan funds used in grant and loan funds, utilizing the remaining funds for the district's USDA AMI project loan grant agreement.
Okay, well, motion, is there a second?
I will second that as long as Damon and Kevin will guarantee.
Okay, there's the guarantee.
All right, there's a guarantee.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Robertson,
Yes.
President David.
Yes. Thank you.
Impressive piece of equipment.
I think pretty organized.
No, I think that it's going to give us a lot more information on real problem in town for water.
Yeah.
Do you have any place you could put that one this afternoon? You could just leave it.
All right, we'll move on to 4B, discussion action regarding Division 2 West Point acceptance and final completion of the water supply reliability project.
Good afternoon. Here we are to talk about the acceptance of the water treatment reliability project for West Point and Wilseyville. We just finished. We just finished construction on it, and this is for the request to the board to accept the completion of the construction. And we prepared a small presentation that will go over the purpose and the financial details and some of the post-construction pictures to talk about this project. All right, the project background, as you guys are aware, the West Point is just a small community. We started about 600 connections over there. And it serves the small communities of West Point, Bummerville, Wilseyville. The treatment facility had a singular treatment unit and that was used for treatment purposes of the water. We had some old infrastructure from back in the day that had a pressure tank and some other towers that have been there since the inception of the plant in the 60s, and that hadn't been used. And so we came upon the opportunity with IRWM and received a grant to fund the purchase of the equipment, but the project had needed extra funds to complete the installation of the project, installation of the treatment unit, and those funds were provided by CCWD from the R&R funds. And that helped us complete this project. The treatment unit that was there was, I mean, even though that's the single modular unit that we have in place, we purchased that used in 2001 and it was built in 1994 and it's been in use and there's hardly any backup for that treatment plant up until this point that we couldn't take it offline to provide the necessary maintenance for it, and all we were relying upon was the storage unit that was there, the storage tanks that would. What then the conflict comes as to, like, if we store the water for a prolonged period of time, it leads into some buildup of THMs and HAAs. And just to remedy that, this project had been in the talks for a long time, but finally came into inception back in 2021 when we allowed the design team of PBI to start designing the project and went into construction in 2022. So it's been in construction since then. We hit some hiccups with the supply chain demand, especially on the electrical components, but all that's been sorted out. So the budget and the financial summary on this project, the budget for the whole project design and construction was about $3 million. The construction bid came out to be 1.852, and then we had some $51,000 worth of change orders. And
Is this the project that Emerson was working on when the building caught fire?
Yes,
up there? Okay.
this is that project.
That 51,000 isn't equal to the amount of what it cost him to rebuild that building.
No, that was not part of it. Though there was a change order that was brought in front of the board where we had gone out and actually asked for bids to demo the facility that was inside that building. And they were the cheapest at that point. And that was a very impressive cost. So we brought it in front of the board. That was about 24,000. And that was one of the biggest hiccups that happened last year. And so they just finished that building, completed the work on that. And that's why we're here.
Okay.
Are you through?
I'm through. Okay.
So what always catches my eye when the change orders in this particular case was almost 30% more added to the base construction bid. But you're telling me that the half of that 51,000 at change order to demolish the building.
No, sir, 51,000, there were 11 change orders. That 24,000 was for the demolition of the treatment facility itself that was inside that building. There was a lot of plumbing, there was a lot of electrical work, and there's concrete work. Yes, sir.
But was it 20, is the 24,000 within that 51,600?
Yes.
So that still leaves 15% for change order. You know, I verbalized this before on, this project have theoretically a tight design, and yet we go ahead and anticipate that there's going to be $50,000-$60,000 worth of change orders, and I've never really understood that. Why you have a tight engineering is done properly, the plans are understood. Why we would anticipate having change orders, but I feel better about that, knowing that the 24,000 gets you in that 15. How do you get the 15%?
Yeah, 30%.
Well, that's 27%. If you have 1,852,000 a stand corrected. Sorry. Fat fingers on a tiny calculator. North phone calculator. Sorry, Sam. I was just seeing things guys with me.
It's all good. It's all good.
Way to go. We were. Yeah. Good thing that came up early in the meeting, because a little later I brought it.
Yeah, I mean, we try to your point, we do try to make sure that we cover all our bases during the design process. But there is certain aspects of it that we couldn't catch at the time that we finished the design. So we had to make some changes, and one of the aspects was that the sump level was low. So whenever we were experiencing backwash and flush, it was splashing. And so we just wanted to make sure that while they were there, the construction crew was there, they could raise that. That was additional 3,000-4,000. That was as part of the change order.
That slab was too low, right? Forget what the problem was, but there was like a big pedestal. Did that get taken out? Did we raise the slab height?
What Sam is talking about is the outlet for the filter dumps into kind of it was only about probably
4.5
inches
Yeah.
off the ground. And so when the water flowed into the pipe to release from the filter for cleaning, it would overflow that pipe and flow out into the ground. And so that was built up by another 2.5 feet, I would say. So that it allowed it to get enough head above it to push the water out into the backwash space. The other slab surprisingly looks really good. They did the footings and they did the building that burned out. Then they left the slab, the existing slab, and it actually looks pretty darn good. There are some couple spots where it gets some, it died.
So you kept that. Yeah, but wasn't there an elevated section to that?
There were stools where the pressure vessel sat.
Yeah. And all that was taken out. Okay. All right. Yeah, no, 3%, I can live with that.
You said there's a total of 11 now, 11 change orders that added up to the 51?
Yes, sir. There were just small changes.
Right. Is that common on a project of this size to have, I mean, it's common to have change orders, but 11 of them during the.
Well, there were certain items like I'll show you in case of the component where like we did the retaining wall.
We know, not comparing it with this project, comparing it with other projects that other contractors have done with us. During a 1-year-long construction. Kevin, is.
Yeah, I think on a project like this, it's 11 change orders is an unreasonable amount. I mean, I've been on projects that have 200 change orders, 500 change orders at LAX airport and stuff like that. So I mean, these projects are, it's not unusual. We try to group changes together. We do change directives. And some ones might be positive, ones might be negative chambers. We delete something or add something.
Were all 11 of these positive? The increase in?
No, they were negative.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, so we value engineer during the project, or maybe our operator says, hey, you know what, I really don't like that model, or there's a new model of PLC that came out and it costs $5,000 more than the other one. I mean, there's little changes that, you know, we try to accommodate as much as we can during the construction.
Yeah, but this is also basically like a remodel.
Yeah.
When you're bidding new construction, you pretty much know the order everything's gonna happen. If you're doing a remodel, you tear something off and you say, well, we gotta take care of that. We couldn't see that before. So I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think it's unreasonable at all to have that.
Yeah, we find a lot of our old plans are really bad, you know, and they're not to scale and they leave stuff out. So that's been done multiple times and we have really bad as-built on projects. So from back in the day, they didn't really track that stuff. We try to track as-built now more accurately. So we have information for future, but there wasn't a lot of as-built.
Hey, those guys burning that building down, the people really pay.
Yeah.
Be sure to hire them again. So,
As long as nobody died.
yeah, make sure we get the same project manager.
Yeah, so it also highlights the grant component of the IRWM that we use to purchase the filtration unit. You guys have any questions on this?
We have $42,000 left in the remaining budget. When are you gonna spend that?
Well, that's a question for Jeff.
Just keep rolling.
So this is the treatment facility. The existing facility in the first image was the first half of the building. So we added on the left side with the roll-up door and the man door. Added the filtration unit to that. The building on the right image, that's the new construction that we were talking about. That's the new building that we'll be using for storage purposes. For all the equipment that we have over there, especially during the winter seasons. Yes.
It would be really neat going forward is to have before and after pictures on a project like
Okay.
this where this.
I was thinking about that, but I just ended.
No,
Sorry.
it's just,
So this is the back end of the building where we had just with all this piping went inside the building. Where they had the old filtration unit. So we kind of demoed all that and just added that. You can see the elbow and basically that goes into the new filtration system. And that's the retaining wall that was built. And that's where one of the change orders was, which led to negative on our side. We got credit for that. So that's the new filtration module that we got from West Tech. That's
both those pictures are the same.
yes, they're both same image, just from different angle. And that's the chemical units. The one on the left side is for the pre-treatment, and the one on the right is for the post-treatment. That's the chemical for disinfection purposes. And these are all the monitoring units that we have in place for the raw water treatment before it gets into the system, pH monitoring, so that the facility can run by itself even without having staffing. And that's the effluent pump station that we've had with the existing module in the back. And we plumbed the piping that you can see the arrow in the background that shows the new piping that's coming into the effluent pump station. And that goes all the way to those two clear wells. These clear wells, they're both 330,000 gallons capacity each. More often than not, we're running, or we alternate between running one of the units. And I just wanted to touch on the other projects that we have in this service area. In the past, we've done some improvements. Those clear wells that you saw, those were constructed back in 2010. And we added a Bowmanville tank that was an additional storage tank and the pump station that was done. And then there was a rehab of the distribution system from the water treatment plant through the whole downtown area of West Point. And that was pretty extensive. It was done by USDA with the USDA loan back in 2007. And that's been in service ever since then. Currently, we do have another project that's the West Point and Wilseyville Sewer Consolidation Project that we have in construction right now with KW Emerson. And that's projected to be completed by the end of this year. And we are working on the drought supply, which is the expansion of the reservoir that we have in Bowmanville to 150 acre feet from 50 acre feet. And that's at 30% design.
Do you know the name of that reservoir?
It's varied. We've been just using regulating reservoir for right now. Yeah, that's at 30% design phase. It's been submitted to the DSOD for their review. And we're awaiting their remarks. That's it.
I'll move for acceptance of accepting this job. Recording it with the Calaveras County.
Have a motion to a second?
Also,
Motion and a second. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Robertson,
yes.
President Davis.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
4C,
Sam,
discussion and action regarding approval of financing through the installment purchase contract, various water capital projects. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. My apologies up front. This item will not be as sexy as the last two. I don't have any show and tell or anything else going on here. Thank you, Sam.
All you have are time constraints.
There you go. And $42,000. Yeah. 40. If they will let you know that I'm very tight on money. So if there's any surplus, it doesn't go back to them. The item before you today really started out several months ago when it was identified we needed funding for several capital projects. Within the rate study, it allowed us, it actually factored in a $16.5 million loan that was supposed to be secured in fiscal year 25-26. So all those costs associated with the loan are already in the current rates and future budgets. On the 28th, your board adopted resolution. Just 1 second, I've got the notes here. 2005-34, which authorized a loan at 16.5 or 16.6 million at 4.69%. And this is with Capital One. As part of the due diligence process that we entrust to our bond counsel, they need to go back and take a look at all our previous loans to make sure we're still in compliance with those loan covenants. There is a thing in public debt called parity. Parity means this loan has the same claim on your net revenues as this loan. So they're all equal. So if something happens to the district, they both have an equal claim on net revenues. Net revenues is overall revenues less operating and O&M costs. And that's what we pledge towards paying our debt service. Now, when you look at the different funds, water fund has its own reserves and covenants, and sewer has its own. So any loans in the sewer fund does not affect the water loans and vice versa. Now, in this particular instance, there are already 2 existing USDA loans that the district has taken out. The Reach 3A, which is up in Ebbets Pass back in 2016, and the 2021 AMR project, which Kevin mentioned earlier. Now, within the USDA, they have different loan covenants than a regular bank does. When a regular bank has a prior claim on our revenues, it's at a parity. All we have to do is our bond counsel has to go out and say, review it, and it meets the terms, file a certificate of parity, signed off, and we're okay. USDA is different. They need to review the parity request by the district and sign off on it. When our bond council went through this process, they reached out to USDA, our local representatives. He ran into a little bit of a roadblock and asked the district to step in. We have extensive contacts with both our local and USDA reps. In talking to them, we had found out that USDA Rural Development, RD, which is how we finance our projects, had lost 48% of their staffing due to the early retirement option offered to them under the new administration. That hit USDA extremely hard. We lost people on the finance side and also on the engineering side. What would normally take maybe 3 to 4 weeks as a review process, they can't guarantee even 3 to 4 months. Locally, they're doing the work. We've already submitted a request for parity consent and they're looking at it, but the black hole is back in national. We are anticipating a 2, maybe 3 week review process here in state. They've reached out to national and have already given them a heads up, but there's no guarantee because they've lost not only a significant number of staff, but qualified staff. Basically, the people took the money and ran. So they're working behind the curve. Now, what does that mean to us? Our current term sheet with Capital One holds the 4.69% rate that was in the original agreement that you adopted on the 28th through July 29th. It is anticipated that we will not receive consent from a review and consent from USDA for 2 to 3 months, maybe longer. So what we had to do is look at options. Our financing team, 2 of the members are online with me with us today, Todd Smith of Hilltop and Leslie Bloom of NHA, worked diligently with Capital One to find alternatives. What can we do? Well, until USDA grants parity to this new loan, it has to be recognized as subordinate, which means its claims are secondary to everybody else's. And Todd can help explain parity to subordinate.
Great. You all understand that?
Okay. So we're going to have to pay a penalty to maintain this to get an interim financing up to 4.83%.
Is there a chance that if we surpass that date, that the interest will go down? Because I mean, I'm not seeing interest rising.
What happens is if we go through this process with this interim loan at 4.83% and USDA grants parity consent, the rate will go back down, revert down to 4.6.
I'm saying that if the time lapses and interest goes down, can we take another crack at it?
Not under these terms. Well, But it does beg the question, sir. I agree with you. We saw Al's comments, and a lot of things happening in the housing market. Al basically said probably next time we'll lower the federal. Maybe a quarter point. Right. And for us, they're diametrically opposed issues here. One is we can wait for the interest rates to come down, but we also have bids on a project that we need to get going on.
I understand the short term. Everything. We need to get these projects.
Yeah.
Rolling.
Right.
But my only question is, if we go past that date, you're saying there is no new crack at it, you'd have to start over again and go through another financing cycle, just like we did before.
That is correct. If we back away, we'd have to wait until the next, and there's no guarantee. One, there's interest rates may come down, but we're not sure. When we looked at the difference in let's say USDA takes 4 months, 3-4 months to review this, and we get parity consent in November. We notify the bank. They've converted back to the original term. It'll cost us about $5,000 in additional interest over that 4-month period.
Well, I mean, the world is so stable. I don't see that it
Jeff did make a comment that we need to get these projects started, and that's where I'm stuck. Do we have, don't we have enough to do and we wait for these, for the USDA? Do we need this interim loan? Do we need it?
We
Or
need-
what would happen if we started those projects and didn't get the project started?
That would be a Kevin answer, but the concern is cost increases due to tariffs and other items. And Kevin, you wouldn't mind speaking to what?
Yeah, we waited 90 days to award the contract to Mazingo. And we got that contract back signed from them. They said if we didn't get that in within the period we had in this documents, our price would have gone up substantially because the price of the pipe has gone up. So if we were to rebid the project now, the price of the project would likely go up from what the bid we have secured.
By more than 5,000?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's gone up by, I don't know, the 10% of the pipe cost. I mean, it's a lot of money. That's a big portion of it.
So this is basically only costing us $5,000 for the additional interest payment under the interim loan.
If we don't get parity though, it would be for the duration of the loan. So I mean, you could,
Or
life
we,
alone.
or we could have the opportunity to go and look at financial side.
Yes, now, if we don't, and Kevin brought up a point I wanted to address. If we don't get parity from USDA, even if we go out for another loan, we would pay a penalty because the new loan would be subordinate to our existing loan. So you will have that delta.
Is it a formality, the parity?
I think so. As Kevin mentioned in the previous one, there's a lot of uncertainty under the new administration is what's going on. And I think in our conversations with our local and state reps, they're hedging themselves and talking about the worst case scenario. But this is something, a parity consent is something that USDA does review. And as I mentioned, state and local reps have already been in contact with our national group and alerted them to this item coming before them.
What's the, I mean, our loan to debt ratio is in good shape, right?
Yes, it
Is
is.
that the primary focus of the parity? What is it? What's
The-
the criteria?
Actually, what I had to do on this is they required us to submit an application that is almost similar to us submitting an application for the entire project. We had to start from scratch. I had to fill out their forms, all the stuff. They looked at our debt service coverage ratio, which you talked about, your coverage. Everything's 125 and above. They basically have to say that you can afford to have this loan, even though the bank, which is scrutinized sometimes even more than the feds, approved this. Question on the construction contracts. A lot of construction contracts will have a little waiver for usual cost increases on materials. None of our lanes contract, they're bound by those original bids regardless of if aluminum pipe goes up by 40%.
yeah, there's the force majeure, I believe it's called. That's like if there's an act of God, that supply chain issues or something like that. A lot of vendors pulled that card with COVID on electrical supplies that you couldn't get because they weren't available because of supply chain issues. So like some of our projects over the last couple of years got delayed for years because we couldn't get the controllers for our pumps and that type of stuff. So yeah, there's that kind of stuff. It's normally vendors would say that to a contractor, but this is like the price of steel and manufacturing costs have gone up, even though this with the tariffs and that type of stuff. So even though the pipes, there's pipe suppliers that's made in America, this project is not required to buy America, like some of the federal projects. So some of the materials would be subject to tariff charges.
But that's not, but the contract doesn't include an escalated clause with tariffs.
No, it's a fixed price, so it's a low bid. So if they,
That's why we're trying to get this.
yeah, so if we bid it again, then they, we got in before the tariffs hit. So the vendors have to honor their original prices. So now that with tariffs, the prices that, especially like steel, iron pipe and stuff have gone up.
So Jeff, your recommendation is we should go ahead with this interim slightly higher rate. That is correct. I don't want to
I believe you do as well.
I have a couple of questions, Jeff. On this page 2 of 3, what is meant by the rate covenant is 1.25?
That's our debt service coverage ratio, 125.
Just haven't seen that rate covenant term before. And maybe you could explain how and why the payments, the payment of 1,026,000 and some change to 2,665,000 and some change per year. What is the explanation for that differential?
That's the, if you're looking at the low end spectrum, is that what you're referring to? Because, oh, let me back up a second. We are not, in order to make it more affordable in the early parts of the year and keep our costs down and within our coverage ratio, we have lower costs in the first, let's say, 17 years. When that 17 years expired, some of our other debt is coming off the books. So when you combine all our debt for the first 17 years, it's level. Then the last 3 years, it's sort of like a balloon payment where it'll go up and cover the previous underpayments for the last 3 years. But overall, our debt service level, all our debt is going to be level. It's just those last 3 years, we're picking up more debt service on this loan to make up for the fact that we underpaid for the prior 17 years. If that makes sense.
Okay, hearing that explanation would think I understand why it would be lower in the beginning.
Yeah.
It isn't it normal on a usual loan calculation that you pay higher interest rate in the beginning, and as you get toward the end, your payment goes down.
This is a combination principal and interest payments. But you are correct, yes.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
All right, is there any other questions from the board? Get a motion for acceptance?
I will make the motion that we adopt a resolution number 2025, whatever it's going to be,
55.
55, authorizing the execution of a delivery by the district for the water project installment purchase contract and authorizing the execution of other necessary documents and related actions.
Here we have motions or second?
Second.
All right, we have motion and second. Is there any further comment from the board? Any public comment? Please call the board.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
Director Ratterman,
Yes.
Director Robertson,
Yes.
President Davidson.
Yes. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I also want to thank our finance team that's done a phenomenal job on this. NHA, Eric Scriven and Leslie Bloom. And for Hilltop Securities, it was Todd Smith and Andy Cole.
Thank you, folks, for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Good job.
Thank you.
It's be great to work with somebody that answers all our questions. Okay, 4D, discussion action regarding support for the formation of Calaveras County Chapter, California Special Districts Association authorizing related actions. Kelly.
Good afternoon. This idea was really born out of some things that I'll be talking about later in my report. Had some really good collaborative work efforts with some of our partnering agencies and neighboring agencies. And then this idea was brought to us basically from Tuolumne. TUD is part of this, and Pete Campa from the Groveland Community Service District gave us a presentation on their chapter. Tuolumne has their own chapter, and it just seems really beneficial. And really, the fire departments are the ones who kind of spearheaded this, and then reached out to UPUD to start spearheading the water district component. You know, we'd like to see all special districts in Calaveras County part of it, but right now it seems like it's really focused on mainly the fire folks and the water folks. So currently, UPUD, San Andreas Fire, McCollum Hill Fire, and Evans Pass Fire District have taken this to their board for the same support. We've been kind of tasked, the water agencies, to reach out to others. We know that MSD has shown interest in joining. We suspect CPUD would like to as well. If there's any other fire districts, those fire folks right there, we're going to kind of reach out to them and encourage.
Which of the, you said in the onset, which ones are already involved in?
UPUD has taken it to their board for acceptance. San Andreas Fire, McCollum Hill, and Ebbets Pass Fire. Mike Johnson's been part of this too and thinks it's really good. And, you know, there's different ways we can go about this. Some chapters get really extensive where they almost create dues and stuff. We've all agreed that that's not the kind of chapter we want. We want just, you know, good open dialogue, communication, and just keeping those partnerships open. So I really think it could be a good thing. Pete Campo really expressed that he found it beneficial with LAFCO to, you know, put that chapter has a little bit more of a seat at the table with LAFCO matters. And he really explained it as that's one of the biggest benefits he's seen besides just the collaborative efforts and some of the grassroots, you know, education that they're doing in special districts. So Dane's been part of this conversation as well, who's our field rep for the Sierra region. You know, there is a Sierra chapter, but that's pretty broad. So again, they do, I think we'd still be part of that Sierra chapter and be involved in those meetings, but this would just be specific to Calaveras County.
What's the obligation of the board? We have to
Well, there,
appoint somebody to be representative, or is that going to be staff?
it could be the board or staff. I mean, the chapter will have, you know, an organized, you know, with president and vice president, you know, so that would be dependent.
And a board,
What's that?
and a board, is there, will the chapter have, or just two officers?
It'll just have officers. I think they're like TUD has 3 officers, treasury, vice president, and president.
And those are from any of the participating district.
Yeah, I mean, CCWD doesn't necessarily have to have an officer. We could, this just authorizes us that time allocation and the ability to do that, but there's no obligation. Like, you guys don't have to be on this. And again, neither does CCWD. But we can participate in the,
Well, I'd
in the meetings.
even be concerned with how much staff time, you know. How much staff time do we have to? I'm sure this is worthy, but we have a bunch of these agencies,
right.
you know. I mean, is it redundant?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can see where it might be redundant. I think, again, in my report that I'm going to show you here in a minute, you know, some of these efforts, it's just really, I think that collaboration would be really, really good.
No,
with the fire agencies and just being lockstep with the water agencies and the fire agencies, just having that. And I sense from the rest of the group too, they didn't want it to be an enormous time suck. You know, they didn't want us to be just dedicated to this, but just to have those open channels.
I've always appreciated CSDA. They have some great conferences. They put on great seminars. I've utilized them since I got on the board. And I would go to the Sierra chapter lunches if they're all in Auburn. This is something we do not, staff doesn't have to get involved. You don't have to be an officer, you don't have to go to meetings if they don't want to, but you said the word collaboration 2 or 3 times, and this creates collaboration and a meeting spot with other CSDA in our county. And fine, only a few of them are involved right now, but I certainly would like to see this formed and do what we can do to help it. Not costing us any money, doesn't cost us any time, unless you have extra time to go to it. No staff would be obligated to go to these meetings, and which we don't know how often those meetings or how often this group might meet.
Yeah,
I'm certainly in favor of this. I'll make a motion to support the formation of Calaveras County chapter of CSDA.
All right, we have a motion, is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. I still have a question or two.
No, that was not a second.
It's, he did.
Oh, you did? Okay, sorry, I said it.
I heard you groan. So- I think I got that right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff, you have something to say.
No, I like you're concerned, I could see this sucking up a lot of time, and you, for the interim, you would take the lead on the formation, and
I feel like it potentially, yeah, it could be a lot of time, but I think it's valuable time. I think these are some of the meetings and some of the efforts that I'm already doing. And I think, I mean, that's the origin of my position, is to have these partnerships and this collaboration. So, you know, there's a 4th time. And so I think it's important, you know, and I think any effort for us all to be united with the other water agencies and the fire departments is crucial. And I don't really think it's anything else that I'm not already somewhat doing. I've already had several meetings with CSDA and with these folks, and that's why I was formed, the concept to form more formalized. And again, we brought in TUD, not TUD, but the Tuolumne chapter to give a presentation, and we were all very inspired and thought, this is something that we feel would be beneficial for Calaveras County as well.
Okay, so in short, is it fair to say that it would require very little more of your time than you're already putting towards the overall effort of collaboration with these people?
Again, I feel like it would be time well spent. And it would be, yeah, really work that I'm already doing in a sense.
I see that it definitely has, you know, it's going to create a venue to do some of your outreach that we're already doing. That probably wouldn't have to happen somewhere else. But I'm just curious. I mean, does this organization have bylaws? You already mentioned that they're not planning on having a fee structure. You know, like if you look at like LAFCO, you know, Calaveras County Water District pays what, 75% of all LAFCO costs. That's still the case. You know, I just want to make sure that we don't end up just being, you know, the piggy bank.
Right. And that question was specifically asked. And again, the chapter can create that. And there is no thought process as of now for this to cost.
So what's the process for the organization? Who do we form the organization with? Who writes the bylaws, the mission? Is it already written?
Yeah, they already have templates. CSDA has all this provided. There's several. I can send you guys that information. I apologize. Maybe I should have included that in the packet just for some more information, but I'll gladly send that to you. But, you know, the CSDA encourages this. They have regional chapters, like I said, the Sierra chapter, and they also encourage these more, you know, grassroots county-wide chapters.
No, I see the opportunity too to use it as a group to, you know, lobby, you know, with our, you know, our state senator, you know, as a whole group, you know, I absolutely support a, you know, I hate using the word collaboration. It makes me sick sometimes, but you know,
Yeah,
you don't always, sometimes you just gotta do the right thing by yourself. But I've always supported our coordination with the fire districts here. I mean, I think we play a very, very important role. Certainly, I'd like to see, I mean, that be the focus of it, but I'll support it, but I just, with the reservation that, you know, we don't have, we haven't been shown the mission or the bylaws or things like that. I would like to see.
yeah. I apologize for not including that. I wish I would have now.
Most of us here, Russ, myself, Jeff, Damon, Kelly, we were all at in Tuolumne County to see what collaboration looks like.
That's true.
And
That's good.
and how those members, I mean, yeah, Cal Fire was there, US Forest Service was there. The Sheriff's Department, yeah, that just showed that they're already collaborating. And I'm not surprised that they didn't already have a chapter of, and a lot of those people at the table did belong to special districts. And we were the last ones to get an RCD here in this county, the last county in California. I don't want to be behind the eight ball. The CSDA is a great program. It's an opportunity to meet. And the bylaws, and I'll bet you the bylaws that were created in Tuolumne County are not, I mean, just plugging in our name here and there. I don't think that's a a big drag on time.
No, but let me just say, we're already doing a lot of this stuff. We're meeting with special districts. I mean, on an annual basis. We meet with the fire districts on a semi-annual basis. We invite them here all the time. So, I mean, if we're gonna do this, I mean, I see this maybe being a better forum. Like I say, it's a venue for us to do a lot of the stuff that we're already doing. I just don't want to do it twice. So
Agreed.
some of the stuff that we've been doing,
We don't meet with special districts.
we meet with them quarterly. All the time. I mean,
What other special districts? What are you talking about?
well, we have the countywide meetings all the time. What do you guys call those? So we're doing that on a quarterly basis, so maybe this will be the place to replace that with. We'll just have to see. That's all I'm saying. I don't want it, I don't want it to be redundant. That's all. That's the, I mean, I support it, but that's my comment.
Call for the question.
Okay, is there any public comment? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Director Thomas,
Yes.
Director Retterman,
Yes.
Director Robertson,
Yes.
President Davidson.
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank
Do
you.
you guys want to take a quick break or?
I do.
Yes, yeah, we'll take a short break.
And more.
Yeah,
Okay, Kelly,
good group. Good afternoon again.
where's the? PowerPoint?
Oh, no, it's been a while since I've given an external affairs report, so I'm looking forward to it. It's been quite a while.
If that, President Davidson, abandoned the committee.
No.
So that's why I get to just cram it all in one, so get comfortable. You guys all noticed the picture. Yes, this picture was sent to me by an individual. I think it's a beautiful spot, so. And I warned them that it would make the presentation somehow, somewhere.
That's outside of the service area. Go ahead.
It's in the works. See all that water we're wasting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Billy.
Oh yeah, now we're in there. All right, I want to start off with our scholarships. I mean, I think you guys are aware, or at least three of you, we did these scholarships in the past. Director Robertson, maybe you're not familiar with it, but we do every year a scholarship to 4 students, seniors, and the last few years it's been on the value of water. And one of the first students reached out, and also, I mean, we also partner with East Bay Mud on this. So they're $500 scholarships, and out of the 4 scholarships, so we put 1,000, and East Bay Mud puts up 1,000. So we awarded the 4 this year, and it was very, very tight. It got so close that I actually had to send all of I extended them out to several people. I know Dave wrote on them as well, and we had a numbering system, and it was down to the wire. There was a tie for quite a while. So very difficult, very inspiring, good group of kids, just like the group of students that we interviewed for this, not the apprenticeship program, but the summer work program. It's just really inspiring to see some of the students and some of the, the future of our county. It's been quite wonderful. So I'm going to read just one of the scholarships, if I may. She can't make it here. This is the first student who reached out to us with her acceptance into college, and she'll be going to Fresno State. Her name is Ava Weatherby Plank. In California, where drought and wildfires have become increasingly common, value cannot be overstated. The Butte Fire was a vivid example of the destructive power of fire and the life-saving power of water. The blaze scorched 70,000 acres, destroying nearly 1,000 structures and forcing thousands of community to flee. My great-grandparents' home, which has been in our family for nearly 5 generations, was directly threatened by the said fire. As the flames approached, firefighters worked tirelessly to protect homes and lives, relying on water to suppress the fire and prevent its spread. For our family, water became a shield, a savior, and a symbol of resilience. The experience gave me a profound appreciation for water's role in combating natural disasters in wildfire-prone regions like California. Water is not just a tool of suppression, it is a cornerstone of survival. Firefighters depend on accessible water sources to protect lives, properties, and entire communities. Without water, their efforts would be futile. It is not an exaggeration to say that the preservation of my family's home and countless others was made possible by this important resource. However, the Butte Fire also underscored how fragile our relationship with water is. California has long struggled with water scarcity, a problem exacerbated by our rapidly changing climate. Prolonged droughts reduce the availability of water for firefighting efforts, agricultural, and daily use. In the years leading up to the fire, McCallum Hill and surrounding areas experienced severe water shortages, which heightened the fire's impact and posed additional challenges for firefighters. Saving my family's home was not just about preserving a structure, it was about protecting a piece of our history. Our family home is more than a house. It is a living testament to the perseverance of the 5 generations who have lived, loved, and worked in the same community. Losing our home would have been more than a personal loss. It would have been a connection. It would have been a severing of the connection to the past. Thanks to water, the connection remains intact. This personal experience has shaped my perspective on broader implications of water conservation and management. It has made me acutely aware of how interconnected our lives are with the environment and the resources we depend on. Water's ability to save lives in emergencies like wildfires is a stark reminder of its importance, but it also highlights the responsibility we all share in protecting this resource. Sustainable water practices, from reducing water to investing in infrastructure, are now are not just environmental imperatives, they are acts of safeguarding the future. In the years since the Butte Fire, I have thought about the role of water and how it plays into our daily lives, both the unseen and seen. It nourishes crops, generates electricity, and provides hydration, but it also holds the power to save lives. For my family and many others, water meant the difference between losing everything and keeping a vital piece of safety and security. It is a reminder that water's value extends far beyond its everyday uses. It is the foundation upon which communities like mine are built and sustained. As we face growing environmental challenges, it is crucial to recognize the importance of water and act accordingly. Protecting and managing water resources is not just about preserving a resource, it is about safeguarding lives, legacies, and the future. My family's story is just one example of how water can make all the difference. It's a lifeline we cannot afford to take for granted.
Makes me feel we should collaborate with some of the fire districts.
I guess it is in the tone. There is some fire stuff, but yeah,
With her permission, I wonder if we should put that on the website as kind of a, that's just a really nice acknowledgement of water and
it
does
is.
a little bit of something about our public outreach. And
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm hoping that the last couple years I've tried to get them to come in to read it. I'd like them to read it, you know. I think that would really be meaningful as well. I've always wanted to present someone with a big check. So that's kind of like a bucket list thing for me. So
And they really have a scholarship. They might do.
yes,
yeah. And so 3 have reached out. I mean, one of the requirements is you have to enroll in college to get it. And so last year we gave out 4, only 3 really reached out and we paid out. So right now I'm waiting on 1 more and I'm gonna reach out to them. And that's a great idea. Maybe I'd like to post it because it's wonderful. So there's more to come on that.
Well, it's public document.
Yeah. Okay. On that note too, every year I've done what's called On the Right Track. This year I did it again. One at Bret Hart, one at Calaveras. Really, really great event. It's for seniors and they're given all these real life scenarios. Leading up to it, all the agencies have a kind of a play or kind of a role in what the scenarios are chosen. And there's all sorts of, and one was, receiving a high bill. Why is my bill high? Explaining the rates, one was your grandmother has passed, then you need to figure out how to pay, the water bill. They're given a multitude of scenarios and, there's Highway Patrol is there, Sheriff's there, PG&E is there, several other agencies that, were given those tools to interact. Yeah. And the second one at Calaveras really elevated. They made some tweaks between Bear Valley, Bret Hart and Calaveras where they gave even more scenarios. So I was not prepared for some of the questions that came at us. And it was pretty cool. Kate Jesus was with me on that one. And they asked some personal questions too about what I tell my senior self, now reflecting, and I did not expect that question, but it was pretty cool. A great event though. Again, just that opportunity and you'll see, I'll show you a picture of our booth. I'm really trying to refine this booth to, grab attention, bring attention into it. I've got all of our meters there. I've got, some information about our service areas, where your water comes from, all the different books and QR codes of how to get in the industry. The kids were scanning the QR codes, which led to, some of the can carry courses, which is how we all get certified in the water industry. And there's a toilet in there, which I thought was kind of a funny prop when I purchased it, but believe it or not, that is quite the conversational piece. And it really gets the conversation started every time. It kind of blows my mind. I also have an iPad there, which is directly to our website. So I can encourage folks to sign up for jobs or go through our rate calculator, because again, that played into one of the scenarios, which was the rates. I was able to talk them through our rate calculator and explain it. And believe it or not, there was some really funny interactions with that. For instance, on one of the rate calculators, you can put in what you think water should be. Several people put 25 cents a gallon, $1 a gallon. We've had these conversations. And this one group of kids put that in. I said, okay, now put in about a penny or 2. That's really roughly what you're going to be paying. And one of the girls was just flabbergasted. She says, my dad makes it seem like it's thousands of dollars a month. She's like, that's not that bad. The interaction and the reaction was hilarious. Kate and I just couldn't believe it. It was fun.
I still want that radio. You know, it's a 150 gallon tank. It's $2.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll explain some more of that in another event later on too, which I think is kind of on that same line. So this was the Bret Hart Career Fair. You know, most of this was all for April. I felt like April, I pretty much just in my car kept all this booth going constantly. Another great event. This was for all school, all grades, freshman through senior. And again, this one was mainly about just jobs. And awesome, this was an awesome opportunity. Again, so many people, not just our students, full-grown adults don't really know what it takes to have that water come out of your faucet. So any chance I have to explain that and communicate that's a really, really cool experience. Some kids didn't really care too much. They just kind of wanted to say, what booth is this? What is this all about? But there was some really, really, really engaging. And again, all those QR codes there was. So I hope to see some of those students applying for jobs here in the near future. Columbia College, we did the same one. This one I did with RIT, Dylan Smith. And at that time, we were actually looking for an IT professional. So this was another great event.
Just curious of Columbia or Delta or any of the others. Do we have is there a list of courses for operators? Is that something we make available for people?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Our HR department, Kate, has done a phenomenal job of making that available on our website. Again, through those QR codes, that's all certifications that all of us have. I know Pat, Dave, and myself, we all have these certifications.
What certification, how far can you go at Columbia College certification?
Well, it depends. I took a course there at the beginning of my career. It was called Water for Consumption. And that course gave me all the credentials to take my D2 and my T2, which is a distribution 2 and the treatment 2.
And so when we go to these things and somebody's interested, we can give them that, hey, this is your first step. You can do it at Columbia, you can do it at Delta. You can do it. Are we giving them that kind of
Yes.
guidance?
Yeah, because that's all the certifications that I'm referring to there is all through Sac State, but what's encouraging is I'm also trying to promote not just water treatment, water distribution and collections, engineers. There's, water resources, all the different components of the water industry, just trying to say, look, this is a very diverse field. And one thing that I really like to showcase to them is anywhere you go in the world, anywhere where there's a community, a thriving community, there's going to be water and wastewater services. And I see some light bulbs go off with these students they didn't really realize that, and a lot of these certifications, especially in California, are transferable up and down the state. If you're certified, pretty much at least once a week, once every couple of weeks, I get something in the mail based on the certifications that is, I just got one yesterday from Contra Costa, the other CCWD. Actually, when I got the email, I was like, this looks bogus. It says CCWD, but when I read it was Contra Costa, and they're looking for this, they're looking for a distribution and a treatment operator. So I think that's impactful to teach the students that this is a good career to get into. And it is something you can take anywhere, and it's not just, again, treatment or distribution or collection. The engineering component,
You
I
didn't
think.
answer that call, did you?
I was just thinking.
Walnut Creek.
Put that in front of the staff, please.
No, I'm just trying to illustrate that, I hope they come here. I hope we can get some good talent. Because I think there's a lot of our students too that also want to stay local and want to raise their families in an amazing place. When I was growing up here, I couldn't wait to get out of here, but I'm so appreciative to come back and realize that everything I ever really wanted is here. Sometimes you don't realize that when you're growing up.
How many years did that take you?
To appreciate it.
Yeah, and come back.
I only moved away for a couple of years, and then I came back. This one was really fun. So Mountain Oak School reached out and just wanted a presentation basically on where our water comes from in Calaveras County. These students here ranged from, I think, 3rd to 6th or 7th grade, and they were giving their own presentation. And so they wanted, Calaveras County to give a presentation as well. And so I gave, an overview of all of our watersheds and kind of the treatment process and what it takes as well. And talk about questions from this group and not expecting them. They kept me on my toes, but really, really good questions and a fun group. In the back there, I'll show it later. I made that part basically saying love Calaveras water. I don't know if I've told you guys all the story of this, but whenever my kids come back to visit, they always go for the water and they always say that, oh, I love this water. And so I thought about that and they all love the stickers. I made some stickers and I'll show you that as well. But just a really fun group right down the street, Mountain Oaks, again, trying to get in the schools and anytime anybody reaches out, I always try to go out there and engage with them. Scott, I know you've seen this. This was some outreach that we did, basically in regards to the legislative day that we did with mountain counties. I think it was a very useful tool, very a nice leave behind. It was a front and back. Mountain counties did a great job of printing it out. I worked with Justin on formulating this and kind of the messaging, and I think it's very, very useful. But I know as we were in that meeting, and I've had conversations with you, Director Ratterman, about what are some of the other uses of that water. And so here's that 60% that we've talked about. There's questions whether it's 60 or 70%, right? Because this little top part is obviously adding in the Southern Cascades. So this is basically California's drinking water source watersheds. And then when you overlay Aqua Region 3, which we're a part of, you start to really see, wow, okay, that's really, a lot of that water is obviously coming from the Sierra region and the Southern Cascades. Here is every single watershed that touches that region. And you and I were talking about, when we talk about the water for agricultural use, we talk about it for water consumption and all the typical water uses. I wanted to see how many hydro facilities are in those same watersheds. I think that could be useful for us when we communicate with these legislators that, and folks from Southern California or folks from the Bay Area, that this water and the headwaters is also helping generate the power for the state as well. So I'm working on the color dynamics of this. I don't quite like the blue on the blue, but it's pretty profound that, all those headwaters too, that the crucial byproduct is the hydropower as well.
You brought that up at Mountain County's Ledge Day. Take good traction on that. It is something not only 60% of the water, but how much hydropower is made there for everybody in the state.
Right. And yeah, and I'm kind of surprised that we didn't really think about it a little sooner, and I'd like to dive in deeper and give some more substantial percentages, say what percentage of the grid is off hydro and whatnot, and because that varies, but it's just still, we know our grid is vulnerable in the state, and even if it's 15% or even if it's lower, it's still a crucial component to our grid, and all because of water and the health of our watersheds. So this was just something I wanted to show you because I know we talked about it, and I think I'd like to incorporate some more of that into some of the outreach as well. One of my favorite events is the Firewise event. I've gone to a few of these now. It's up there in Independence Hall and at its past area. This year they did it a little bit differently. They had some panelists. I was fortunate enough to sit on a panel and another great opportunity to just talk about our water system.
This would be one of those things that would be replaced by association.
I don't think so. This is mainly for Firewise communities. The who's putting it? Yeah, to create like from this, the subdivision that I live in Meadowmont just became Firewise. And there's an official certificate now that I can turn into my insurance and hopefully get probably not much of a discount. The other certificate, yeah. But again, not just, so one memorable one from this was, there was a lot of talk about power outages, and that comes up a lot up there with the PSPSs. And this one woman came up to me and said, I remember not too long ago, I was out of power for 8 days, but my water never went out. Does water not really need power? I said, oh, I was like, thank you for that question. And I was able to really explain that nexus, and I was able to explain, no, it takes a lot. And what it takes is a dedicated crew in the background keeping the backup power going, but she was a full-blown adult that didn't know how, she just didn't even think about it. My power was out, but my water never went out. And so these kinds of events, those kinds of face-to-face interactions, I really value and think that's crucial. That's where I can really, tell stories like this. And that's only with one person, but who knows how she's now has this information, and now she can spread that truth and that information. So when I was talking earlier about kind of how that CSDA thing that came about, TUD really kicked this off, and they kicked it off, shortly after the Southern California fires, when, water districts were kind of getting blasted, right? And TUD wanted to do kind of a joint messaging. And so, they initiated Calaveras County Water District, Union Public Utility District, Utica, and Twain Hart Parks and Recreation and Water and Sewer. And we kind of worked for a few weeks, probably a couple months actually, to formulate kind of a one pager, the same thing. So where we can give that information to the public. I was able to use this kind of pamphlet at the Firewise event. Just, Aqua put out some really good toolkits, kind of doing the same thing, really just kind of talking about what the expectations of the water system is in an event like that. So I can send you guys this if you guys would like. TUD has done a really good job of pushing it out. They also had a My Mother Load, like a radio show where there was a couple of fire folks. Don Perkins from TUD was on it. It was a really, really good interview kind of about this topic. Calaveras Forest and Fire Film Festival. This was something that I was invited to on May 31st. Really, really cool event. Martin Hubbardy and some of the folks from Firewise kind of put it on. Really good format in the lobby. This was held at the Bret Hart Theater. And in the lobby there were several different agencies. And then throughout the day, there was several different films, really high quality films on watershed health, forest, resilience and all that. And then there was several breaks between the films where folks were allowed to come out and talk. And so I had a presentation ready to go. As people came to the booth, I was ready to, mainly about where your water comes from, some of the forest work efforts that we're doing, like Dowd's, which I'll explain in a moment as well. Another just useful a tool. And with all these, there's usually, rates always comes up. That's some people will just kind of make that big. I really actually enjoy it because it opens up that dialogue and gives me that opportunity to really talk through it. Again, there's just a little bit a lack of understanding what it takes to have water come into the tap. So every one of these events is useful for that. So even though this is, this says specific to the Forest and Fire Film Festival, there's more conversations that just organically happen just by having CCWD present at these kinds of events. This is another kind of like that I just talked about with TUD and that working group. The Headwaters put on a working group at the similar time is to put out some video content. So this was a really fun group. This was a really, really collaborative. Sorry, had to do it. I want to make sure you're still listening. But I'm not sure. I think you guys have seen some of the videos. There were several different videos made, some for social media, some long form. I'm just going to show you two of them. There is this first one has a little bit of CCWD's infrastructure in it, so I think that's pretty cool.
The CCWD is info.
I can pause it if you want.
I was just gonna say that the Headwaters group at Aqua, wouldn't have been formed if it hadn't been for a director here at CCWD putting the paper together. It's one of the top priorities of Aqua. It's not number one. It's been number 1 and 2 in 2 or 3 years in a row.
Yeah, it's really, I feel, elevated in the last couple of years. It's a great working group. So
That
Director
was introduced in the Aqua DC conference
yeah, that was the first one. That was kind of the trailer to really get more folks involved in it and then to make some more. I'm not sure if you noticed Director Robertson, but the tank demolition and rebuild in that one was the tank from Forest Meadows. So, yeah. Yeah, they build that from the roof up. They jack it up and then do the next layer and then jack it up and then do the next layer. See, and those guys work fast. Kevin gets it done. You don't mess around.
Where does the other 40% come from? 60% comes from the Sierras.
Well, that's just the California, like, I mean, of course, Southern California gets a lot from the Colorado River and also groundwater, tremendous amount of groundwater.
Groundwater comes from the Sierras.
I guess you could say that. I mean, but some recent legislative advocacy tours we did were just fantastic. I know a few of you made it to some of those. The two that we did most recently was with Assemblyman David Tonkipa, and then we also did some with Senator Schiff and Padilla's members there. And this has been a really great event. We're really working together with several other agencies, Utica Water and Power, UPUD, and the City of Angels. And NCPA has also helped out facilitate this as well. So this is the one where we were with Senator Padilla and Schiff's staff members there. We were able to have lunch out there, do a nice presentation of where your water comes from, kind of really showcase. And it's always impactful when you get them out into the water infrastructure and to see it. On this particular day too, we were able to show them some of the fuel stemming projects that are in the works in the area. And I loved that portion because I loved there were so many different levels of the fuels projects, everything from non-treated to treated X amount of years ago that needs to be retreated to some recent ones to one actually being done at that time.
That's even.
I know. Yeah.
It's about a half mile from my house at the end of it.
Oh, really? So this is the one that we did with the Assemblyman Tongipa. It was a great tour, kind of similar, except for this one, we actually took the time to go tour McKay's Dam. We actually had lunch on the intake structure. And so that's just what a great place to have lunch and really collaborate and talk with the Assemblyman, and just really gives us that opportunity to showcase. You can see the impact on their faces when they see this stuff in person as opposed to not. Little quick one on the Dowd's fuel break. You can see there that little green sliver there is the Dowd's fuel break project that's being worked on right now. It's about 150 acres of mastication on private land. All the other colors, that main blue is basically the Ebbets Pass service area. The red is all the treated areas that Cal-Am has done over the years. It's completed fuel breaks. They're done. The green is what's in the works right now. The big yellow one is one that SPI did not too long ago. So you can really see, of course, we'd like to see some larger scale projects done. But what I like about the Cal-Am team is they're strategic in there. And even if they can get a smaller 150 acre one, it's connecting to others, and so it's kind of connecting that. I think they're calling it the Ebbets Pass Highway 4 Fire. Oh, there's a name for it, but it's basically trying to connect all these smaller projects. So I think that's really, really useful. And as you can see, here's kind of an overlay of the 2001 Darby fire, really comes right up to a lot of those fuel breaks that are being built right now. And just for more context, you kind of see the old Gulch fire of 1992 and the Butte fire. So these fuel breaks, I think larger would be better. But again, at this point, any size is really helping protect these communities. So this is the Dowd's project that's going on right now.
You saw the videos.
They are. These guys were real fun to work with. They allowed me to put cameras on all sorts of equipment. And boy, these guys, they spit up a lot of material, a lot of dust. You'll see one shot where I was able to get my drone in front of the masticator, and I just had this feeling that one of the chunks of wood was going to hit it, but it didn't. But the before and after, it's remarkable and kind of humbling with how much work this is going to take to really do this. And again, this fire, the Darby fire came up to these folks, like this community that we're doing this work on, they're so appreciative of this work. They don't ever want to relive that again. And the Dowd's bridge was crucial in helping support the fire suppression efforts for that fire, mainly getting him equipment in and out. And a lot of handwork. It's not just equipment. You know, they got 2 guys on the ground. They got 1 guy in the masticator, and they got usually 1 guy in the excavator. That he's putting right there. But if you look what he ahead of him, it looked like that behind him. You know, he's still got to charge through that material. But as you can see, it's starting to open up. You know, it's now creating a space that could be defended. And this is driving along McKay's Road. This is actually a different project. This is one that's closer to McKay's. This one is just about wrapped up. Another clean, it looks just beautiful. And as you drive out there, before you get to this location, you can see what's not treated. And there's a noticeable difference. So weeks before this was taken, you couldn't see 20 or 30 feet into that hillside. And now you can see through it. The Calaveras Historical Society, I was fortunate enough they invited me to one of their dinners on March 27th. I'm not going to show it, but there's a QR code if you guys would like to see it, or you can just Google Calaveras Historical Society, CCWD. It was a really, really great event. A little bit hot in that building, but it was fun. Just a great crowd. The place was packed. I really enjoyed it. I gave the history of CCWD, and they invited me back next year.
The board and staff was very, very impressed. Being invited back.
Yeah, that group. And then I saw Tad Follendorf at the Firewise event, and he really enjoyed it. And he's got some other ideas. And he said I reminded him of other things, and he threw out some other names that he'd like to interview or talk about. So it got his wheels turning. It was inspirational to him as well. And some folks that didn't know the information absolutely loved it. Some people that knew a little bit of the history, it reminded them and inspired them. So this is kind of before I fixed my booth up a little bit more, but still, this was a Forest Meadows Homeowners Association. Another great one. I like this one too, because these were our water and wastewater customers combined. And I think that's valuable to really have those conversations. That place just constantly, people all day long, really, really good conversations. I definitely have to have a shout out for White Pines Park Committee and the Ebbets Pass Property Owners Coalition. I just call it EPOC. I meet with them monthly. I meet with White Pines Park Committee on the 3rd Monday of every month. And then every month too, I meet with EPOC, and just great groups, good conversations, just amazing. And so if you guys know of any other groups like this, please put me in contact. I would love to, do more of these. So if you guys are aware of any other community groups in your area, please let me know.
When I last inquired about it, he probably virtually.
It's still virtually, yeah. I'm not sure if they're ever going to go back. As I've met with them, it's only been virtually. So yeah, I mean, it's still it's packed, it's virtually packed. But there's quite a few people that attend, and good. We all always give them an opportunity to have a report out. So that's that opportunity. We've had Woodard and Kern, who's doing the Calaveras River Watershed Resiliency Plan. They've used that as a format to present as well. So this one blows my mind too, the Copper Valley Community Meeting. And I love it, Russ, if you can talk a little bit about this, because this was a packed house. I think there was over 100 people there. And
many of them were there with the pitchforks. Put them away.
They were. So I was invited there. The premise was rates. A gentleman did a thing in the copper wire, a write-up on our rates. And he wanted, basically to invite me for lynching, basically, with pitchforks. And
From the looks of all that gray hair, you could outrank them.
yeah. But it was fantastic. And really, there was three different people asked me about
If you had here, it'd be great too.
Why don't have it?
Yeah. 3 different people asked me about pools at this one event. 2 of them, well, the first guy said he was worried about filling up his pool because, you know,
It cost him $1,000.
yeah, he thinks he in his mind,
Maybe 25.
he thought it was going to cost a lot. So he told me how large the pool was. I did the basic calculation, said it's going to cost you about $30 to fill up the pool. And so his mind was blown. The 2 other folks said they filled up their pool and they were worried about their bill. When they got their bill, they were shocked that it wasn't really that noticeable, not that bad. So in this one event, like I said, I found that interesting to talk to 3 different folks just about pools. But when they invited me, I told them, I said, yeah, I'll go there and I'll gladly talk about rates. I don't mind that whatsoever. However, I'd love the opportunity to tell you a little bit about CCWD, a little bit about the projects, and a little bit about the infrastructure. And then we'll talk about rates. So it was a great opportunity because we had so much construction down there with the lift station projects and the tanks and the clear well, and just explaining that and talking about their system, just giving them that context. And some of the projects that are coming up soon, like the Lake Tolek line and the sea transmission main, all these projects that are coming up. And once I was finished with that and gave them that background, then I leaned into the rates and we broke down the rates. I even had an actual bill, you know, with the person's name blacked out with an actual bill, and we talked about it, you know, and I found it very beneficial, and I think the crowd did too. And again, Russ, you were there, Jesse was there. I expected it to be, it went very, very well.
It did, it was, very positive outcome.
So, and again, too, please, if you guys have any other events like this, I'm more than happy to do them. I'm looking forward to the Rotary one. Once we got the date kind of worked out, that was back and forth for a little bit, but I'm looking forward to that.
Also, if you ever need anything in our district, something just strictly, just, you know, go on.
Okay, will do. Thank you. So this is, I don't really like giving our social media stats. I'm not a fan of it, but it's interesting. You know, it still kind of shows there's some decent engagement through our social media platforms. LinkedIn has really, really taken off. But this one's just about Facebook. I can't read the numbers. I apologize, but you can see the followers continue to go up. You know, 42 new followers, but that's 20%. You know, our engagement, 200+%. Our content interactions up 500%. This is in the past 90 days. So it still is a useful vehicle for us to get that information out, and it's still being interacted with. May was busy. You know, we had our water awareness month and also drinking water week all in the same. So we kept on getting pummeled. It seems like there's always weeks or months, whatever. So there's a few different outreach things I did for these events. And there's usually context with it too. I mean, it's not just a little video, you know, put out something and kind of, you know, say a little bit about where your water comes from. It could be, this one is interesting. I'm not sure if everyone appreciates it like I do, but I realize that basically within the first 15 minutes of every day of my life, I'm using water and appreciating it through showering, brushing my teeth, using the bathroom, and making my coffee. Basically within 15 to 20 minutes, I'm using this amazing resource that we have. It's the clean version. So I think you get the point, but you know, I don't want to go through my days without coffee or any water first thing in the morning personally. And then I also made some, where did your water come from? I made 2 different, these were basically for social media as well. we're wrapping up here. I only got one more. But this is, again, some more educational information. So just to wrap up, every year I try to be one of the first ones to drive over Ebbets Pass. It's just a thing that I've always done. I mean, anyone who's done it knows how amazing it is up there. But when I did it this last time, sorry about that. Get one? It's not. As I was driving through, you just see all the creeks that are just normally small creeks, just these vibrant rivers. You got, these lakes starting to melt off, and I just really realized that the watershed's coming alive. And I know several people that love this drive and love it for the same reasons. And I just wanted to kind of bring that to the forefront. And this is where our water comes from. I mean, when you look at Alpine, when you look at Mosquito Lake, when you look at Highlands, that's really where our water comes from. All those snowy peaks that we love to look at, that's our water source. And to me, it's amazing every time I think about it. So this was just to kind of bring attention to that. And again, I realized that on that drive, this watershed is waking up from the winter. And I love it. So that's it. And thank you guys very much.
All right, thank you. Very nice.
Who was doing the narration on this?
One guy's name was Pete. No, that's some AI generated voiceovers that I've been dabbling with. Yeah.
The last one, they sound like a young girl that was very young.
Yeah, I don't like how she says reservoir. I don't like that. Yeah, you can kind of tell with some of those.
How it should be.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So you type it in and.
Yeah, I create the script. And yeah, I tried doing it myself. And when we talked about time management earlier, I realized that I was just spending way too much time just recording myself and not liking it. So I was trying to be more efficient.
So we get to trust me.
Good job. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
So,
Okay, we'll move on to general manager report. Seeing none. Is Michael on with us? Is there anybody giving a general manager? Okay. Okay, we'll go on to board reports, information items, and future agenda items. Jeff, do you have any? Scott?
We got JPA meetings in Roseville tomorrow afternoon. And, early tomorrow, Friday morning, we have our executive committee meeting and captive insurance company, CWIP meeting.
What? Good.
Scott already mentioned that, three of us attended the, Mountain County's event at Roundtable Event in Walton County. But that's all I have to report.
I have nothing to report. We're going to adjourn to closed session. 8A conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. 8B, government code 54957-6 6, agency negotiations. Is there any public comment on,
You skipped over item 7 on our agenda, which we should discuss. We've got a memo sitting in front of us
Oh,
from
okay.
Becca about changing the 23rd to 30th.
all right, what's the pleasure? Michael would like us to move this to the July 30th. Should what?
That should make it work. Well, changing the plan. I'll make it.
I'll make it.
Okay. Our next meeting will be July 30th. Okay, any public comment in closed session? Okay, we will adjourn the closed session.